Hi, Vlad here, DevInsighty.com. Welcome to this video, which is the first one in the new series that I'm making where we're going to develop a plugin for Sublime Text, which is a cool text editor that I'm using that will connect to the REST API of Spotify and show us the current track that we're playing in the status bar of Sublime Text. This series will be a bit different from typical tutorials that you see on YouTube because we're developing the entire plugin from scratch, from requirements to tests to deploying it to package control, which is a repository for Sublime plugins. So the goal for you is to be able to replicate everything that I'm doing here. Again, I won't be able to explain everything step by step like you would see in a regular YouTube tutorial, but I hope to make it as beginner friendly as possible. Okay, so I took a screenshot of my desktop. So you see Spotify on the left and Sublime on the right. I'm going to show you the real product as well. After that, I just didn't want to jump out and back in of the slides. So the bottom left, you see a Hollaback Girl from Gwen Stefani. And over here in the status bar, we also see Hollaback Girl displayed in the status bar of Sublime Text. Okay, so who is this for? Obviously for someone who just wants to learn how to build things from scratch. I'm editing this, so I'm not sure if I mentioned this already. We're gonna build the whole thing from scratch. We're gonna install Sublime Text. We're gonna install Git. We're gonna upload the whole thing to GitHub. We're gonna write tests. We're gonna deploy it to the package control, which is a repository for Sublime Text plugins and so on. And it's obviously for someone who wants to learn how to build and test plugins for Sublime Text. Again, tests is not something that you would typically see on YouTube. Tests is basically something like healthy food. Everybody knows that we should eat healthy, but not everybody does it. Someone who wants to learn how to work with the Spotify API, it's a REST API. It's very well written actually, and the documentation is quite nice. And also for someone who wants to learn a little bit about OS2, if you don't know anything about it, don't worry. I'm going to explain it in just enough for you to be comfortable with it. And obviously to develop applications in Python, because Spotify plugins are written completely in Python. So what you should know, there's basically only one thing that you probably should know is programming fundamentals in any language. You don't have to know Python yet, but if you already played around was literally anything else, if else statements or expressions and loops and all the standard stuff, it's going to be much easier for you to follow. However, if you don't know any other language, if this is like your first time thing, then just relax, enjoy. Try to just absorb the whole life cycle. Watch my previous video if you must. Again, as I mentioned, it's not that important, but if you already know a basic Python, it's going to be easier. If you know basic unit testing, basic HTTP, basic JSON, and again basic OS2. But I'm going to try as much as I can to make it as beginner friendly as possible. Okay, so what's Sublime Text? If you don't know, I'm guessing you already know, that's why you clicked on the video in the first place. But if you don't, it's a proprietary text editor that was first released in 2007. And I'm recording this in July 2017, which means that it's basically 10 years old. And it's proprietary. I think it costs like $70 or something. But it has a very convenient evaluation thingy. Basically you can I'm going to show you later how to install it. Basically install it, and then you can use it for as long as you want. Just that occasionally, once in a while, there's going to be a pop-up which is going to say buy me. But if you're still a student and you can't afford it, just press escape. It's going to go away, and then in a few weeks it's going to bother you again. That's exactly what I did when I was a student. I think I used Sublime Text for 1.5 years before I actually got a job and could actually afford it. So Sublime Text is developed by an ex-Google engineer who was coming from Vim and Visual Studio, which is not the same thing as Visual Studio Code, by the way. He was also coming from game development environments, and he realized he wanted to combine basically the speed of Vim and the beauty of those game development engines. So this is also what Sublime Text is still known for. It's very fast. Probably one of the fastest out there if you don't compare it with was Vim, obviously, because it's because Vim runs in a terminal and it doesn't have to render anything. So probably Vim is a bit faster. But apart from that, it's one of the fastest. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that Sublime Text is the best editor here. I'm not trying to start like a war. I already did a video about that, about dev wars. Watch it if you haven't watched it. Yeah, but like if I already started talking about opinions, for me, two things are very important in an editor. It's the speed and the beauty. Like you might think, why beauty? But as a developer, I'm sitting in front of that thing for at least 8 hours a day, and I'm probably coming home and I'm also developing. So it actually is a factor. Anyway, so it's known for speed, it's known for beauty, and it's known for great community. It's got a bunch of plugins for all the things, and we're contributing to it, which is kind of cool. It's adopted primarily by front-end developers. If you don't know what a front-end developer is, it's people who do JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and right now the landscape for them is actually kind of blooming because there's so much stuff happening in the JavaScript world with React and Angular and stuff. Yeah, so the backend developers, they seem to love their IDEs, like Eclipse and IntelliJ and so on. But yeah, I have been using it. I'm a backend developer, and I have been using it for backend development, particularly in Scala for the last 6 years or so. So it works well for everything. And because it's just a plain text editor, it can be used for literally anything from writing emails to code, which is what I'm doing. Like I'm writing my scripts in Sublime Text. I'm sometimes writing my emails in it as well. It obviously runs on all major desktop operating systems, so Mac, Linux, Windows, and it inspired a new generation of editors like Atom or Visual Studio Code, which took the same, it's a very similar look. It's pretty much exactly the same shortcuts. It's very similar philosophy. They just saw that the development of Sublime Text hasn't been that rapid in the last few years, so there's been potential for that. And it's actually really cool. So Sublime Text is written in C++ with some Objective-C for the Mac integration and Python for plugins. And we're going to just write a plugin. So all we need to know is Python. There's no need for C++ or Objective-C. So the version that we're going to be using is Sublime Text 3, which is a major release which happened, I think, in 2014 or 15. It's technically still in beta, but it's very stable. I have been using it for around 3 years now, and I didn't have any issues. And I'm pretty sure that most of the community switched to Sublime Text 3 a long time ago. And also here's the link where you can download it. Okay, so I also decided to have a slide for what Sublime Text is not. And it's not a screen editor like VI or Nano, so it has a graphical user interface, as you have seen in the screenshot. So it is also not an IDE, it's just a plain text editor. So it's not an IDE like Eclipse or Visual Studio or IntelliJ IDEA. So if you're coming from a backend background, there's no debugger, there's no auto-completion that understands, the AST of your language. Having said that, Sublime is a platform, so it is possible to write debuggers as a plugin, and there are debuggers for multiple languages. And also there is auto-completion. It's just that it's on the syntax level, so basically just looks for words that are contained in the same file, and it auto-completes them. And in case it's not obvious, it's also not a word processor like Microsoft Word. It's plain text. Okay, so what is Spotify? Most people know Spotify, but it can't hurt to refresh it a bit. So Spotify is a streaming service for music, podcasts, and most people don't know it's actually for video. It was founded in 2006, but officially launched in 2008, which also means that it's, again, it's summer of 2017 now, so it's been around for like 10 years. So the web API is over there. It's not the REST API endpoint, it's just a documentation for the whole web API, which is really good, and we're going to jump into it and consult it once in a while. So this is the version of the Windows client that we're going to be using. It's not the version of the API. I really tried to find it, but I couldn't. I'm only mentioning it here because, again, I'm just going to mention all the versions here for the future reference. But I'm mentioning it here because the REST endpoint that we're going to be using is still experimental. And once I started playing around with it, I realized that the Windows client was actually not updating it. So when I was playing a song from my Android Spotify client, I would actually see the current track in my Sublime Text, but when I was playing in the Windows client, it wouldn't update the REST endpoint. So I filed a bug and they fixed it. So yeah, so all I'm saying is that it might be possible that they might change the API and so on. And obviously that's where you download it. Yeah, but again, most people know Spotify. Okay, what is Python? Python is a general purpose, high level scripting programming language, which was originally released as a pet project in 1991, and then it had a major second release in 2000, and there has been another major release, Python 3, in 2008. Python 3 is the one that we're going to be using this time. So it's developed by Guido van Rossum, and I hope I pronounced his name correctly. He seems to have a background in math, and it's a funny story because when he released Python 2 around 2000, a few years later Google was founded, and they were actually using Python, which popularized it quite a bit. And in fact, they hired him a bit later just to keep developing Python. So the language is adopted primarily by the scientific community, and I don't mean to say that you need a PhD to understand Python. In fact, it's quite the opposite, and this is why a lot of people love it. It's just that it has like such a big community with a bunch of packages. They have packages for everything, and a lot of this stuff is very computer sciencey. So people love it, and also it's very simple. Basically, you just open a file, you save it with a .py extension, and you just throw in definitions in there, and it's just executive top to bottom. It's a scripting language. Yeah, so it appeals to scientific people who who don't want to develop like huge software applications. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that it feels that Python is more suitable for rather smaller things or very concentrated projects. Python is dynamically typed, which means that the types are checked during runtime and not during compile time, because there is no compile time. Even though Python can be technically compiled to C, this is not what we're doing here. Also, there's been development for a aesthetically checked type system for Python, which is optional, and it's still in development. And again, this is going a bit too far here anyway. It is strongly typed to a certain degree. So you can't use an integer as a string, but there are cases where you can say, hey, is this string bigger than 5? And it's going to say yes, and things like this. So it's not a very strong type system. It's interpreted, again, so there's no compiler. You can compile it to C, but most of the time it's interpreted, which means there's an interpreter sitting somewhere. You give it the script, it reads it, it converts it into binary on the fly. Yeah, that's pretty much what interpreted means. It's got automatic memory management, which means that when we create a variable, we don't have to allocate space for it, and when we don't need this variable anymore, we don't have to clean our memory ourselves. It's being done for us. So the version that we're going to be using is 3.3.6, which is not the latest version out there. I think right now the latest one is 3.6.5 or something. So it's technically 3.6. It's just that Sublime Text comes with its own Python interpreter, and it just happens to use the version 3.3.6. And you can download it obviously on python.org, which is not something that we need to do, as I will show later. All we need is Sublime Text. And that's a picture of Guido van Rossum, by the way. All right, so that's the end of the presentation, and let's get started. All right, so in this section, I'm going to show you how to download and install Sublime Text, which is all you need to replicate whatever we're doing here. We're going to go a step further here because we actually want to deploy it to the package control repository for Sublime plugins. And for that, we need to host the project on GitHub. And for that, we need Git, which is why I'm going to show you how to install Git on Windows and also Sublime on Windows, because I'm guessing that you're in Windows, because most people use Windows. In fact, I'm going to do the entire development under Ubuntu in the virtual machine. But still, I'm going to show you how to install everything on Windows. So if we open the browser and go to Sublime Text It's not .org, it's .com. Again, there's a big blue button download for Windows, and if you're on Mac, you're gonna see a button download for Mac, and as you can see, this is the version. What we're gonna do is we're gonna click on other platforms, and even though we could have downloaded the other one, I just want to show you that it's also possible to download the portable version, which is what we're gonna do. Let's download the portable version, and it's only 10 megabytes, but in the meantime, let's go to D and just say, let's just create a folder for our projects. Let's just go here, and this is the downloaded zip. Let's cut it out, put it over here, and just, I'm using 7-zip to unpack it, but it's a regular zip archive, so just extract it. And it looks like that, which is probably not what we wanted. Let's delete the zip, and let's create a folder and call it Sublime Text 3, and let's just, whoops, and let's just put everything in there. All right, so we have the Sublime Text 3 folder, and it has the exe in there. Oh, by the way, check it out. The whole thing is 20 megabytes. Let's compare it to, say, Atom. I have Atom installed, and it's only local Atom. I don't have any plugins or anything. Look at this. Check it out. It's an entire CD. And the reason for that is because it's written and deployed with Electron, which means there is an entire Chromium browser deployed with it. Anyway, back to topic, Sublime Text and Sublime Text exe. By the way, before we start, notice that there is a sublime.py and sublime_plugin.py, which are Python files that we're going to be using obviously quite a bit when we're going to write plugins. So let's start it, and that's how it looks like by default. I'm going to bring the other one that I have installed from my other monitor just to compare. I have a custom theme, and I have plugins to show how big my how big the file is, and also I have obviously the plugin that we're going to develop. I have it installed here, so it shows moments from Spotify, which is also on another screen. Let's have it here. Hold up, let's make it smaller. Yes, it's playing moments, and I'm not recording the sound from my Windows machine, so you're not gonna hear it. I guess it would violate the Spotify agreement anyway. So as you can see, the sound changed, and now it's called Moonbound, and this is why we see Moonbound. And also when we click pause, it should disappear, and when we click play again, it should appear again, and so on. Let's try the next one. Abrasive. So basically every I think 5 seconds right now, it just asks the REST API to give the title. And in Sublime, if you press Control Shift and P or Command Shift P, it has this command palette, and we're gonna do it like that. If we type Spotify, then we're gonna see the settings, and it's also possible to enable and disable it. So let's disable it for now, and it's gonna show here Spotify disabled, and the song disappeared. And if we re-enable it again, it's going to say, okay, play a song, and it will be shown here, and there's a song. It is also possible to view the settings, but let's not get into that right now. We are actually going to write a teeny tiny plugin for Sublime right now, just for fun. Check it out. So Sublime Text has a console over here. See, console. And this is a regular, well, not a regular, but basically there is a Python interpreter in there. So it's probably super small, actually. Hold on, let's go to settings. Oh, that's tiny even for me. Font size. Let's make it 20. All right. So that should be bigger. Let's maximize that. Okay, so this is Python, so we can say here import sys, and then sys dot, I think it's version, yeah, and as we can see it's 336. I think there's also another way to do that. I think it's version info. Nope, it's not version info. Oh, I typed it wrong. Version info. There we go. It says version info, Major 336. Yeah, so when we develop plugins for Sublime in Sublime, we are going to be forced to restart Sublime all the time. And if I press Ctrl-Shift-W, it's going to go away. And if I start it again, which is over here, Sublime Text, it starts without the console open, even though it was open before we close it. So we're going to write a teeny tiny plugin that would show us the console every time we start Sublime Text. Even though there's a shortcut, I think it's Command tilde, which would open it. But still, just to show you guys how easy it is to do. So all we need to do is to go to Tools, Developer, and say New Plugin. And it gives us some default plugin. And as you can see here, it imports this, hold on, where was it again? It imports these two files, or modules, as they're called in Python. We actually don't need them, we need only one. So we only need to import Sublime, and there's a hook that we can implement. So we say def plugin loaded, which is a regular Python function. So we're going to say sublime dot active window, which is the well, obviously the current Sublime window, and we're just going to run a command, and the command is going to be called show panel. It is a built-in command, and we're going to pass in as a second parameter a JSON-like Python thingy. We're going to say panel console and toggle and true. And this is a Python true, by the way, so this is not JSON true. Anyway, yeah, that's all we need. And now we say Control S for save, and look where it saves. It saves under Sublime Text, data, packages, and user. So all we need to do is to give it a name, open console on boot, and we save it as .py, save. And if the plugin contains only one .py file, then every time we save it, it gets reloaded. See, it says plugins loaded, so it actually already applied it. But just to demonstrate it, let's close the console with escape, and now close Sublime Text, and just reopen it again. Here, nope, not here. There we go, project Sublime Text, and it's right here. Then boom, the first thing that happens is the console opens. So right there, we wrote our first Sublime Text plugin. In fact, right now we're gonna disable it because we don't need that. Actually, that's probably not enough. Let's do that. Let's do that. So yeah, the whole thing is disabled now. So if we open it again, the console doesn't open. Okay, so that's it for now. What we're gonna do next is we're going to install Git. Which if you just Google Git for Windows, you're gonna find the same thing, but yeah, it's git.scm.com, and just gonna say download for Windows, and it shows a bunch of stuff, but it actually starts downloading. It's 37 megs. Anyway, show in folder, it's right here. We'll click on it. We'll say run, close that, next. Okay, what do we need? Yeah, so it comes with git bash, which is an alternative command prompt to Windows. You can install it and try it out. I believe people prefer it. I'm not doing a lot of Windows development these days, so or development on Windows, so I don't really need it. But anyway, everything was fine. We just say next. Start menu folder, we don't really care. Next. Yeah, use Git from Windows Command Pro, which is what I'm gonna do. You might choose something else if you want. like use git from git bash only. Next, I'm just guessing that the defaults are good. Next, okay, check out Windows style commit Unix style line endings. So this is the thing, like the most of the programming world is under Unix, and even if you're a Mac person, Mac is basically Unix. So that's what you want. Git bash will use blah blah terminal which sparse blah blah blah. That's probably better, but that's not what I need. In this case, I'm just gonna choose that. Path and caching. Honestly, I don't really know. Let's go. Alright, so that takes longer than expected, so I'm just gonna cut it out from the video. Alright, it actually took quite long because there are a bunch of teeny tiny files that needed to be unpacked. So now it's finished, and you can say launch git bash, but we're not gonna be using git bash, we're just gonna say finish. So now if we press Windows R and just type in cmd, which is a regular terminal, we should be able to say git. Yeah, so git is installed, so git version, I think you can do -v, no you can't, git -version. Oh, and I just realized that you probably don't see that stuff, so how do we do that? Properties, font 28, boom. All right, so yeah, so if we say git -version, it's gonna do that. And I guess if you've never used git before, we can do a tiny introduction. So remember, like super tiny. So remember we had this projects folder. Let's create a project in here. Let's say new folder, my awesome project. All right, so if we go into that folder in the terminal, which is hold up, let's do that, let's do that. Okay, so if we just take that, and I believe in Windows we can just do cd and then right click, and then it's going to paste it in. That didn't work. All right, so d colon. All right, there we go. So if we say dir, then we see that there's nothing in that folder. And I believe we can say git init. It's been a long time since I did that last time. Okay, it's initialized an empty git repository in d projects my awesome project.git. So if we're here and we go to view and we say hidden items, we see this git folder, and this is like a bunch of stuff that git needs. So never ever touch this folder, never ever delete it. Let's actually hide items again. All right. So now we can do git status in here, and it's going to say on branch master initial commit, nothing to commit. So if we create a file here, new text document, let's say this is my file, and we do git status, and we see, okay, it's over here, but it's untracked. So let's say we go into that file, and it's going to open. We still have. Do we actually have? Let's use that one. So this is Sublime Text. All right. So I want to put it over here, and the folder over here. So okay. So we see my awesome project. Actually, let's open. I wanted to show you that you can just drag and drop the file in, but let's actually open an entire folder. Let's open the projects, my awesome project. Select folder, and actually opens a new instance, so we can close that one and move that one back over here. So this shows the folder structure, and in Sublime with Control-KB you can close it and open it again, or you can press Command-Shift-B and say what is it, sidebar? Yeah, and press sidebar. And sidebar. Okay, let's click here. Okay, so first line, save. Okay, so now it's saved over here. You see it's 1 kilobyte now. So if we don't git status again, nothing changed. The file is untracked. So if we say git add, we could say my file, but usually what you do is you say add everything. And now if we say git status, it's going to say, hey, it's over there now. And if we say git diff, it's going to show us the changes. but there are no changes because there's not an initial commit. So let's commit that. So we just say commit minus all was a message, and just give it a message. And you say first, or people usually say initial commit dot. All right. So fatal, unable to auto detect email address. So what? Nothing happened? Yeah, nothing happened. So we need to do that. And usually, you know, the email and name is going to be the one that we're going to use in GitHub. So that's what we're going to do. Just say git config -- global user.email, and our email is going to be info@davinsight.com, and our name, I'm not sure if that's necessary, but I guess it is. Global user.name. All right, so let's get back to git. Actually, we can press up a few times. There we go, initial commit. And now it says one file change, one insertion, created mode, blah, blah, blah. So if we say git status now, it's going to say, hey, we're on branch master, there's nothing to commit, it's all good. And if we say git diff, nothing's happening. Okay, so if we add the second line, save, and we say git status, it's going to show, hey, something changed. Okay, well, what changed? Show me the difference. And this is what changed. So it used to be first line, now it's first line backslash, second line, not backslash, it's the line ending character. And I would say we could do git add dot, but everything is already added, so it's not just to say git commit all end message. Okay, added second file. Git status, so good. So there are entire books about Git and everything, but this is like the minimal that you need. Yeah, and that's all about Git. We're up and running. So we got Sublime and we got Git. Actually, what we also need is probably GitHub. So if we go to github.com, that's how easy it is to sign up for GitHub. You create a username, use the email, use password, use the same email as we just configured in Git, and that's all you need. I believe that's all we need for this section. It's a good time to wrap up. All right, thanks for watching.